Top Taiwanese lawmaker visits U.S. Capitol. U.S. eyes access to Papua New Guinea naval base and airport. Philippines places buoys in S.China Sea to assert sovereignty. EU preparing for Taiwan contingency in revised China strategy. Thai Move Forward leader contacted 5 parties about alliance. Ukraine hails gains in Bakhmut as Zelenskiy wins more weapons in Europe. Chinese Patriotic group leader life sentenced for espionage by China. Japan, South Korea in talk about planned Fukushima water release.
Hello, I'm Johnny. Thank you for joining us on Funday News. It's Tuesday, May 16th, and here are your top stories. Bloomberg reported Tuesday Taiwan's legislative speaker Yeo Shi-kwon visited the U.S. Capitol, where he planned to meet with members of a committee focused on competition with China. Bloomberg said on Monday morning, Yeo Shi-kwon was seen leaving McCarthy's suite of offices at the Capitol, but McCarthy said he hadn't met with the lawmaker personally. The report cited a person familiar with the plans who discussed them Monday, on condition of anonymity, as saying Yeo is set to visit with members of the House Committee on Competition with China.
在演讲里面，我有提到，就是说，2014年这个
Bloomberg reported the committee's chair, Representative Mike Gallagher, said in a statement that the U.S. needs to arm Taiwan to the teeth to head off a potential invasion by China. Lawmakers have pushed the Biden administration to free up a backlog of U.S. weapons sales. Bloomberg also noted Yu has served as president of Taiwan's legislative body since February 2020 and was a founding member of the ruling Democratic Progressive Party in the 1980s.
According to Nikkei Asia, the United States is close to finalizing a major defense deal with Papua New Guinea that will allow its armed forces to access the Pacific country's ports and airports. Nikkei Asia said the deal will be signed when United States President Joe Biden visits Papua New Guinea after the Group of Seven's May 19th to 21st summit in Hiroshima, Japan. The report noted that the deal would allow U.S. troops to use certain facilities and areas in Papua New Guinea on the condition that they mutually agree.
To build a new naval base in Lombrum.
According to the report, the potential locations that are being discussed include Mammoet Airport, Jackson's International Airport, Nadzab Airport, Lombrum Naval Base, the seaport of Lae and Port Moresby. For the U.S., Papua New Guinea is a key strategic area as it is located at the southern tip of the so-called Second Island chain, which includes Japan's Ogasawara Islands and the U.S. territory of Guam. The U.S. believes that China may establish a base in Solomon Islands close to the Second Island chain.
The Philippines has placed navigational buoys within its exclusive economic zone to assert sovereignty over the disputed Spratly Islands in the South China Sea. The Philippine Coast Guard said Sunday it set up 5 buoys carrying the national flag from May 10th to 12th in 5 areas, including the Whitsun Reef, where hundreds of Chinese maritime vessels moored in 2021. ANC reported the PCG meanwhile warns of serious repercussions should China take out navigational buoys installed in the West Philippine Sea.
Serious repercussions should China take out navigational buoys installed in the West Philippine Sea.
The Philippine Coast Guard spokesperson on South China Sea issues said on Twitter, "This move highlights the Philippines' unwavering resolve to protect its maritime borders and resources and contribute to the safety of maritime trade." In May 2022, the Philippine Coast Guard installed 5 navigational buoys on 4 islands in the Spratlys. China's claim of sovereignty over almost the entire South China Sea was invalidated by an international arbitration ruling in 2016.
The European Union's revised China strategy will include the risk of a Taiwan's contingency for the first time. Yomiuri Shimbun reported in the draft EU said the risk of escalation in the Taiwan Strait clearly shows the necessity to work with partners to deter the erosion of the status quo in the interest of all. The EU noted in the draft the EU needs to be prepared for a scenario in which tensions increase significantly. The EU will adopt the revised strategy at a summit meeting in June.
European navies are being asked to intervene to guarantee peace in the Taiwan Strait.
The strategy will serve as the basis for the China policies of each of the bloc's 27 member states. In previous documents, the EU has shown its support for the One China policy regarding the Taiwan issue. In the latest revised China strategy of the EU, regarding Taiwan, the draft expresses concern about the impact on Europe, stating, any unilateral change of the status quo and use of force could have massive economic, political and security consequences.
Do today learn. Today is Tuesday.
Commercial.
Traveler 是旅行者。
I have to wait for click.
So he or she is at the Columbia Towers Hotel gift store. 所以他在这个饭店的礼品店，然后他要买东西。Okay, so let's take this chance and listen to the.
学习让生活充满乐趣。Funday 英语。
The leader of Thailand's opposition Move Forward Party said on Monday he had invited 5 other opposition parties, including Phunday, to form an alliance and that he was ready to be prime minister. Move Forward leader Pita Limjaroenrat said Thailand's opposition bloc should stick together to dislodge the military from politics and form a government after an election in May. Move Forward came in first in Sunday's election, which saw military-backed and establishment parties trounced by the opposition.
ประกาศในความมั่นใจว่าอย่างน้อยเราได้ทำตามเป้า
PETA said the alliance between pro-democracy parties was needed to overcome the outsized influence of the 250-seat upper house Senate, which will vote to pick the next prime minister along with the 500-seat elected lower house after the May 14th election. He said, if the lower house is packed as much as possible with those following democratic norms and rules, we will be able to take away the conflict of the politics of the appointed upper house versus the politics of the elected lower house.
Ukraine on Monday officially confirmed and held its first substantial battlefield advances for 6 months as President Volodymyr Zelenskiy won pledges of new long-range drones in Britain, and Rishi Sunak's government also said it would soon start training Ukrainian pilots to fly fighter jets. Ukrainian's commander of ground forces, Colonel General Alexander Zelenskiy, said the advance of our troops along the Bakhmut direction is the first success of offensive actions in the defense of Bakhmut.
Ukraine's Army General Staff said Russian forces were pressing efforts backed by heavy shelling to gain ground but had failed. Moscow has acknowledged retreating north of the city, and the head of the Wagner private army fighting inside Bakhmut has said Russia's regular forces have fled positions on the northern and southern flanks. Ukrainian officials portray the fight as localized advances, rather than the major counteroffensive push which they say has yet to get underway.
A 78-year-old U.S. citizen and Hong Kong resident was on Monday convicted of espionage and sentenced to life imprisonment by China's Suzhou Intermediate People's Court. In a statement, the court said Zhang Xingwen Leon was also stripped of his political rights after a brief trial on Monday. The court gave no specifics of his alleged offense, but said Suzhou's National Security Bureau began investigating Leon on April 15, 2021, on suspicion of spying.
Hong Kong and Chinese media outlets reported that Leung had once been a senior member of a Chinese patriotic group in the United States called the U.S.-China Friendship Promotion Association. Pictures were published of Leung with some senior Chinese officials. Leung was also mentioned in an article carried on the website of the U.S.-China Friendship Association, another pro-China group, voicing support for Hong Kong's national security law.
Japanese and South Korean officials held hour-long talks into early Saturday and agreed on a visit later this month by South Korean experts to the Fukushima nuclear plant before it begins the controversial release of treated but radioactive water into the sea. Discussions were held Friday in Seoul and online, in which the Japanese government provided an update on the status of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant. Officials are preparing to release the water, saying it's an unavoidable step for the decommissioning process.
Japan's foreign ministry, after a nearly 12-hour meeting that ran past midnight, issued a statement early Saturday saying the two sides agreed to have a 4-day visit by a South Korean delegation to Japan that includes a Fukushima nuclear plant tour, and that further details, including its program, need to be finalized. The Japanese government and the plant's operator, Tokyo Electric Power Company Holdings, say the water release will begin between spring and summer and take decades to finish.
Now let's take a look at the vocabulary of the news of Fukushima water release. Number 1, controversial, 引起争论的，有争议的。Abortion is once again a controversial political and moral issue. Number 2, radioactive, 放射性的，有辐射的。The government has been storing radioactive waste at Fernald for 50 years. Number 3, decommission, 正式停用武器、核电厂等。HMS Warspite was decommissioned as part of defense cuts. And that's all for today's Funday News. Be sure to tune into Funday News from Monday to Friday and click the link below to join Funday for free. I'm Johnny Wu, your host. I'll see you next time.